All right, guys, welcome in. It is Wednesday. It is time for another edition of Full Court Press, another huge slate on a Wednesday night. Bunch of games to talk about. We'll get into it in a second. First, Rob, how did your Tuesday go? How'd your $5 Tuesday go for the clients?
Yeah, the $5 Tuesday, the play itself wasn't very good. San Diego State minus 12 against Wyoming, win by 9, and you learn
up by 11 at half, right?
Yeah, get beat in the second. You're not supposed to, but as long as I've been doing this, Adam, sometimes you find that you ignore some things that you shouldn't ignore. And while I was gung-ho on the San Diego State side of things in that game, I pretty much disregarded the Wyoming side, which would have been situationally that team needed to play a really good game. They're free falling in the Mountain West, and it's a better team than what they had shown. So I didn't necessarily give Wyoming the proper respect, lose by 3. Otherwise, we had a 2-2 day in college basketball beside that, which was pretty good. The Murray State game, 81.5, land 81, team total. Unbelievable. Another one of those half points where we got caught. But I think that the Murray State handicap was right. They did come out and cover the spread. For those of you who played them ATS, you win with Murray. Trying to think of what else was it's so hard to remember today, never mind yesterday, but it was 2-2. NBA brought me to a plus though, because I had a big NBA play that won. So the full day wound up as the 6th consecutive winning day in a row.
Robert Serpus in the chat says, great call on USC, Adam. He went to the game, so he got a nice in-game winner right there. But that was it for me yesterday. I went 1-2, feeling a little bit unfortunate to go 1-2. I had DePaul plus 10.5. If you watch that game, I don't think St. John's really deserved to be a 12-point winner there. It was pretty close throughout. Of course, DePaul hits a 3 to cut it to 10 with 16 seconds left, Rob, and some folks dribble the clock out right there. But DePaul decided that wasn't going to be the case. They fouled, ended up losing by 12. The other one, listen, I had Boise State gave it out on the show. They were up by 20 in the first half, 30-10. They were up by 14 in the second half. Nevada came all the way back to force overtime. And so here I am, Rob, rarely with a favorite in OT. That rarely happens for me. And I have a good memory. I remember sitting there earlier this year with Boston College plus 7.5, losing that one in overtime to LSU. I said, this is the gambling gods are going to repay me right here. It's good, it's a good time for it. Of course, they did not. Boise State ends up winning by 4. I had minus 5.5. So a 1-2 day, but we'll live. It's been going good, so we can live with that. I did like that San Diego State play, though. That was one I strongly considered. And Rob, another one. Thankfully, did not come back with USC. I might be at the GW Bridge right now if I did that. So I don't know if you saw the end of that game, but
I was watching UCLA at the end. I was surprised they got such a high point total. The only reason I was interested there, Adam, real quick, is we're delaying the start of what's going to happen today. But the only reason I was interested in UCLA, Indiana, was because the other day I had USC team total against Indiana. Again, a game that fell a half point short. USC left me at the doorstep. UCLA, not the case though last night. Mick Cronin had gone nuts again on his team the prior contest. And I don't know. They responded. So maybe Mick's rants just don't get old, Adam. You would think at some point they get old, but UCLA played a great game again without Sky Clark. When they get him back, I know the Big Ten focuses on Michigan, especially, and Illinois, especially, rightfully so. But I don't know. There's something about UCLA when they get Sky Clark back that looks pretty good.
Rob, here's the thing. We do what the chat asks for on the show. And I've been asked in the comments. I've been asked in here. You got to recap the night before. You can't, we want you to come on and say if you went 1-2 or 2-1. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we do on the show. We do what you guys ask for. So that was the Tuesday recap. It's time to get to Wednesday. Rob, I was having a hard time picking a feature game tonight because, there's a lot of like ranked versus unranked. There's good ones, but they're not like super marquee games. I landed on UCF Houston. I figured for two reasons. One, 19-2 against 17-4, right? Houston's a top 10 team, one of the best teams in the country. But as I was handicapping these games, Rob, I felt like UCF deserved their shine for a second. This is a team. Johnny Dawkins deserves some credit, so we'll give him a little credit right here on Full Court Press. I thought this was going to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 coming into the season. When you looked at all the other teams in the Big 12, in my head I said, well, there's UCF's got to be one of the bottom three teams in this league. Rob, this team right now is 17-4. They're 6-3 in conference play. They have wins over Kansas, over Texas Tech last time out over the weekend, a shocking result for some. And then, they hung around with number 1 Arizona, only lost by 7. 6-3 in conference play. Very, very impressive for UCF relative to what I thought they were going to be this year. And then there's Houston, 19-2. No surprise there, right? I don't think anyone had any reason to think that Houston wouldn't be a top 10 team again this year. And there they are right at the top of the Big Ten behind Arizona, who has not lost yet this year at 7-1. You, Rob, does Central Florida have another one in them here, or is this going to be a blowout?
My initial reaction was not that they have one in them in terms of pushing Houston to the wire over the course of 40 minutes, but do they have one in them covering this type of number, which we've seen increase this morning up to 15, I think was the last I saw. I'm going to check it for everybody now. 15.5 is what we're looking at here. Houston opened 14.5, total 150.5, which sounds insane for a Houston game, down to 147.5, 148.5. So you got a little bit of shopping room there, but it's Houston under Kelvin Sampson is a very, very predictable team each and every year, what they're going to be, what they're going to look like, what they're going to do best, what they're going to maybe not do best, which is go into scoring droughts, etc. This is the number 1 offensive efficiency team in the Big 12. It's amazing how much better they are offensively this year, and they still don't do everything right on the offensive end. They're a better three-point shooting team. They're not a great three-point shooting team. They don't turn the ball over. Their guard play is sensational as far as ball handling is concerned. They still offensive rebound like crazy. On the defensive end, they don't defensive rebound. I feel like with Houston, you have to at least match up halfway decent on the glass if you're going to have any opportunity whatsoever. And Central Florida does, in my estimation, right? That 7-2 kid bowl in the pivot there. And Central Florida has been playing pretty good as far as rebounding numbers are concerned. They're a team that can score. Houston generally, if you have a squad that on the offensive end isn't quite as efficient, or if they're not top half of the conference efficiency wise, and if they have a tendency to go into scoring droughts, Houston will lock you in a box and you won't score. And we've seen that at home. So far this year, we've seen 3 wins at home inside this league of 20 points or better. So they're more than capable. But I go back to one thing that you said really quick here about UCF hanging tight with Arizona. Nobody rebounds better than Arizona so far this year. Nobody does anything in this league better than Arizona so far this year. And if you can play to within single digits against them, I have to believe, Houston's off a monster win. Maybe this win isn't as big. Houston does have lulls at times. So while I think they're going to win the ball game, my tendency here, my lean would be to play Central Florida plus the points. If you come in with a 17-4 team and a veteran head coach like Johnny Dawkins, you come in here and maybe Houston's the one with the bullseye on their chest. Like Houston's the team that's going to get your best effort, your max effort. And their max effort against Arizona was good enough. So why wouldn't it be good enough here against Houston to get within 15.5?
Yeah, I mean, my number's been off on UCF all season, so it doesn't surprise me that I make Houston a bigger favorite than the 15.5. So that was not surprising to me. I knew before I even started doing calculations for the game, Rob, that I was going to come out showing an edge on Houston against the number. But I won't be laying it in this spot against Central Florida because of a lot of what you said. The other thing being there's a lot of tough shot makers on this team. So two things that are going to be able to keep you hanging around against a number like 15.5. And maybe this is also a case for the over a little bit as well, because I do think UCF can score some points. The ability to hit the 3-point shot, and then, of course, the ability to make tough shots. And Central Florida does both of those things considerably well. They 40th nationally in field goal percentage. They have tough shot makers on the team. They're 21st nationally shooting a 38.2%. And like you were saying, they're statistically comparable to Houston rebounding the basketball. So there might actually be maybe some second chance points, maybe a tip out, maybe a rebound and a kick for an open three. That's a way Central Florida can score points. On the other hand, if Houston can score like the way that they are capable of, right? Like if they play their best offensive game or what they're better at, like if they play the offensive game that they're capable of, Rob, sorry, trying to get that out. They should score at will here. They should score points hand over fist in this matchup, in my opinion. So I guess I can't decide which one I like better, but for me, it would either be take a shot with Central Florida plus the points, kind of knowing that they can hang around. You already made the Arizona comparison. Listen, beating Kansas and beating Texas Tech are pretty nice feathers in the cap as well, right? And Houston, I don't think they're better than all three of those teams. I think they're right in that sort of grouping. Arizona, Texas Tech, Kansas, Houston. They're all kind of, you could make a case Arizona's 1, but then the others are like 2A, 2B, 2C to an extent. So yeah, UCF potentially hanging around, but also some points because I think UCF at worst will score in this matchup and Houston should be able to score their points as well.
Yeah, and real quick, just to specify the stuff on the glass, Adam, is we know under Kelvin Sampson that Houston lives off of second chance points. They live off of second chance, third chance, fourth chance. They attack the glass like crazy. But UCF is the best defensive rebounding team in this conference statistically so far. So that's kind of the case that we're making here on the glass, that Houston doesn't get as many second opportunities as they're used to against this team, which actually limited Arizona on their second chance opportunities in that game. I just pulled up the box while you were talking. They did a great job there. So again, Arizona was at home in Orlando. This is on the road. But I do agree with you that this conference at the top, boy, oh boy, Arizona has proven to be the best, but there's a paper thin difference between a couple others, and Central Florida has proven to hang with every one of them so far.
I'll say this on the Central Florida side. I think you wait if you want to bet Central Florida. Let the market steam the crap out of Houston, which they almost definitely will. Pretty much happens every game for them. And so I would almost I wouldn't be taking 15.5 now. I'd see if you can get 17.5, right? I think I see some places going to 16 or 16.5 already in this game. So I would wait if you like Houston, or I'm sorry, if you like Central Florida. But again, I think if just for the sake of this being the feature game and trying to give a side and total opinion, if you're going to lean Central Florida plus the points, Rob, I will say the over would be the play, playing back at that early move and taking points. And I think there's a little bit of correlation there. I don't think you're getting a Central Florida cover that stays under. A game that stays under is likely a 35-point Houston win, in my opinion. So maybe some correlation, Central Florida and over. Okay, let's move on. Garth has jumped in. We appreciate the donation, Garth. And we're going to get to your game. We'll talk about it right now. Very interesting one to me. I was just at the Tulsa game over the weekend. I was at the Reynolds Center, Rob Vino, Tulsa, Oklahoma, for Tulsa absolutely destroying Wichita State. Very impressive performance. I talked on Monday about just a great atmosphere, great production they had for that game. Last year, I went to this building. This is the Eleanor Baldwin Arena in Boca Raton, Florida, where this one is going to be played tonight. I don't know if Bayou's here yet today. He's convinced the rims in this building are soft. I don't know where he got that info. But here he is. He's there. I see it. He's there. But yeah, Bayou has been saying all year that Florida Atlantic has just insanely soft rims. They play better at home because of it. Their offensive numbers are better at home because of it. Robino, you know who would benefit greatly from some soft rims, if that's even the case? That would be Tulsa, who's as good of an offensive team as any team in this league. Rob, I got a great stat for you. I talked for a while with the associate AD, the one that's kind of in charge of men's basketball. He gave me a great tour. Again, they first class everything there. They were awesome to me on Sunday. And he threw a stat at me, and I said, I'm definitely going to use that on the show. Tulsa this year, Tulsa starting five. The statistic is plus minus, which I think you would understand that stat better than me. I've never been able to fully wrap my head around like plus minus and how to like apply it to, like handicapping for myself. But I know it's a stat. You NBA guys love that stat too. Anyway, Tulsa's starters plus minus is the third highest in the country. The only two teams that have a higher plus minus for their starters in college basketball are Arizona and Houston. Listen, it's pretty good company, Rob. Anytime you're in a group with Arizona and Houston, that's impressive. Tulsa was very impressive on Sunday. I've liked this team all year. Going way back to non-conference play when I said they were going to beat Kansas State and they fell 1 point short in a game they probably should have won. So Garth likes Tulsa. I kind of like Tulsa. What do you think about Tulsa FAU?
Well, you don't want to bet against Tulsa right now, but if you were going to bet against Tulsa, and listen, I just was too proactive on Sunday. It was my only loser with FAU team total over. God, I forget what the number was, but they were playing ECU and they got into the high 70s and you need to get me, I think 81. They didn't reach that point. And the guessing game there, Adam, was whether or not Vanderpool and Carlisle were going to come back for FAU. And, you dig in this business. When you're betting these games, you dig. And between the lines, I got the feeling that Vanderpool was coming back. So I went ahead and played them over because they'd been off a couple of poor offensive performances for FAU. If there's one thing they do well, it's score the basketball. They fell just short on Sunday. So my inclination tonight was, I want to come back with them and catch them over their team total here, which I still wouldn't be opposed to. It's the second game back for both of these guys. They're whole. They're at home. Bayou says everything falls in Boca Raton. So, why not try
Maui Invitational rims, he says in that building.
So the problem that you have here is you have the Tulsa defense, which has been, and here, I'm trying to remember. Okay, so if we're talking about St. Louis, the way we talk about St. Louis being 2, 3, 4 cuts above everybody else in the A10, right? So far this season in the American, what you're up against here, if you're me looking to play FAU team total over, is that Tulsa is showing you that they're more than one cut above the rest of this league right now on both ends of the floor. Been good offensively, been good defensively, but I think the FAU can get to this defense. I was a little surprised that the full game total came down, to tell you the truth, because I think it's going to be up and down here. But I'm going to stick by my guns and be on FAU team total over 79.5. They're the underdog here. So that's kind of helpful to me because you're asked to do a little bit less where scoreboard production is concerned because you are the underdog. The team, the favorite, obviously is asked to score more, which is Tulsa. Can they get to 83? Of course they can. But I just think that a fully stocked FAU team at home can get to 80 in what could wind up being an up and down track meet. I don't think Tulsa's defense is incredible and something FAU can't score against. So that's the way I'm looking at it, guys. It's very possible that ends up as my leg of the parlay. We'll worry about that down the road here this morning. But FAU team total is where I'm at right now.
this is the second one in a row where my number contradicts the way I sort of feel about the game, right? So first one we talked about, number loves Houston, but I would want the UCF side here. I make FAU a slight favorite. Just the math makes FAU a slight favorite for me, but I think Tulsa is just a much better team. Now I can't dispute because there's some numerical data supporting Bayou's claim that FAU shoots it just insanely better at home. So that is certainly, something that I think you have to acknowledge. And this is not just this year. They've played better in this building. It's also let's not leave out the fact that that's a pretty challenging place to play on the road for other teams in the American. The average, so Reynolds Center in Tulsa holds 8,300. There was about 5,500 there on Sunday. That is mostly what you get in this league, in the American, right? 8,000 seat venues. Not the huge arenas. Memphis plays in an NBA arena, right? Temple, I was just there. I think that place maybe holds 10,000. FAU holds 2,800, right? This is a much different facility than a lot of these teams are used to playing like league games in. The Ellie holds 2,800 people. So it's small. It's, it can be tough on visitors. I think you have to at least acknowledge that. So again, I maybe lean your way a little bit in the respect that, there might be a lot of points in this game, but I do think the books kind of overcompensated for that on that initial number. That's probably why it came down a little bit. They threw a 166 out there because I think they're sort of looking and saying, well, FAU scores at home, Tulsa scoring on anyone and everyone. They were that was an insane offensive performance. That was a good, that was a Wichita State team that's been playing really good ball lately, and Tulsa just bodied them. There was that second half was as impressive of a half that I've seen them play all season. So I wouldn't bet against Tulsa here, Garth. So if you're on Tulsa, good luck. I'll be rooting for you. Don't know if I'll be on that side. However, Rob, if Florida Atlantic takes enough money, which it looks like they're taking money right now, and suddenly I can get Tulsa at a pick, I may have to at least consider that. Otherwise, I don't think I could talk you off either of these teams scoring points. And your look toward FAU makes a lot of sense because they've been on the road lately, at least the last couple of games. I think they've had a couple of road games. Now they're coming back home where they're much more comfortable offensively. So yeah, that's going to be a great one. I think Garth nailed it. Might be the best game of the day. Yeah, that's going to be a great one to watch tonight. And, we'll circle back to this one if Rob's going to use it before the end of the show. Rob Bino, I don't remember who requested this. I did go out and get the Purple Haze bang after I went 1-2 yesterday on games I felt like I should have went at least 2-1. I said, we got to switch it up. We got to go with the bang this time. I was drinking Rain Energy for a couple days. I got to say, though, I don't love the Purple Haze flavor. That's on me, though. I've had a thing since I was a young kid. I think it's because my mother gave me You remember Dimetap? Is that still a thing?
Oh,
is Dimetap still around?
Yeah.
When I would get sick as a kid, that was the medicine in the house, and I hated it. I'd spit it out. I couldn't. They'd have to hold me down to get me to take the Dimetap. I hated the liquid. I still don't do liquid medicines because of that. If I can avoid it, got to be in pill form. I can't sit there and drink a medicine. I'll pretty much throw up. But this flavor reminds me of that. I'm having flashbacks to that. So this is probably the last time for the Purple Haze flavor. But I told you I would try it, and there it is. The other thing before we go to the next game, of course, the package that Rob and I have, it's up for the whole season. 2 days or 3 days, double the firepower, CBB. It's all of my plays. It's all of Rob's plays in college basketball. It's been running pretty good for the most part of late. Had a really good weekend, kind of a wash yesterday, but we'll see if we can get it going today. I've already locked one play in, and Rob, I have a feeling with this great board, great slate that I'm going to have at least one more. So yeah, we will continue on here. First of all, I want to really quickly acknowledge this is just a donation from Robert. Again, we cashed in person for him last night. He was at the USC game. They tried their damnedest, Rob, to choke that one away at the end. I don't know if you were still up watching that, but it did get home. So USC got the job done against Indiana. Appreciate that. And now it's back to games. I will jump back into the chat in a second. But I did. My buddy Jeff is going to this game tonight. He asked me about it yesterday. I said, you know what? He doesn't really ask me for games all that often. So I said, we'll hit it on the show. This game is in Central New York at Cotterell Court. I did throw the hoodie on, and I also hit a Patriot League game on this show, which someone acknowledged in the chat here. We hit one on Monday with Boston University. So Rob Bino, let's head to Central New York. Colgate Army. We talked about on Monday the fact that it's Navy, it's Colgate, and it feels like it's everyone else in this league. I got to be honest. Army burned me earlier in this year. I feel like Army used to come up on the show on a game, on a pretty much a daily basis. Anytime they played, I would almost always make a case against Army, and they would almost always find a way to make me look stupid somehow with just, an obnoxious 3-point shooting performance when they're a team that can't, that shoots outside the top 300 from threes. It was stuff like that for most of the year. Rob, they hit the road tonight with a team field goal percentage of 42%, 323rd in the country. Their 3-point shooting, however, has improved. They've gotten inside the top 200. So for me, the path here is probably some 3-point shooting, but I still think Army's just not a very good team. I'm tempted to lay it with Colgate. Talk me on to that. Talk me off of that. And do you have anything on the total here?
Yeah, I mean, it would be simple, probably too simplistic for me in this one. First of all, I always look at Colgate from an offensive perspective, way more than defensive. But you have the number one offensive efficiency team in the conference against the worst defensive efficiency team in the conference. That just plays into Colgate's strengths. If you just run a little bit with them, and this is a slow tempo league, right? Nobody goes quick in this league. So even though Army's ranked 6th in tempo, it doesn't mean they're fast, but they're quick enough. They'll do enough to allow Colgate the opportunities. And then they'll play, the resistance on the defensive end is so little that Colgate may not need a lot of pace here. Their team total is 80.5 right now. And it just seems so doable for Colgate to get to 81 against this team. Last 3 games, right in that territory, right? Boston U, 80, Holy Cross, 79, Lehigh, 76. Now, granted, the last 2 are in overtime, but those 3 teams I rattled off are so superior to Army defensively that you have to figure Colgate at home gets their way in this one. Again, laying points with Colgate, and I'll just, we'll requote a lot of the things we say during the year. But if I can't rely on you for defensive stops, and in this game, I guess if I can't rely on Colgate, I kind of have the cushion of relying on Army to miss shots. Like you can't defend, but the other team can't shoot either. So maybe I'm okay trying to cover this particular number. It's being steamed up right now. I see 11.5s out there, Adam, at this point in time, but you can still shop your way to a better number. My lean would be Colgate team total over, but I don't think I could talk anybody off of Colgate winning by 12 here.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at, big number, but I do think Colgate could get there. I think my gut tells me that this is a blowout, like that the 11 or 12 is not going to matter. In the end, it's going to be something like a 20-plus point Colgate win. They come off of, so a couple things I'll throw out here just to wrap this one up. One, Colgate comes off a loss to Lehigh. Not necessarily a bad loss, but still they, going on the road, it was probably like a basket, the spread. So not a bad loss, but they lost by 1. And I do think that puts them in potentially a good spot to bounce back from that loss and maybe want to extend the lead at some point here. I kind of think that this whole game goes over. So it would support your look at the Colgate team total. Army does not play good defense, but one thing Army has done, I'll go back to that. Their 3-point shooting in conference play has been very good. And I think Army so remember, this was a team last year that had Josh Scovins, who's now at Davidson. he was kind of the guy that could get into the paint and score a little bit. They also had Jalen Rucker, who was a guy who was one of the best players in the league. He was a guy that could get to the rim. With the guys they have left, they don't have much. They don't get to the free throw line, and they don't have much in the way of interior scoring. So Colgate likes to play this 1-3-1 sort of extended zone, 3/4 court pressure. They'll give you, like, Matt Langle's going to give you like numerous different looks defensively. But as I talk this one out, Rob, I'm wondering if, Colgate's in that zone a little bit. I don't think Army's going to be totally upset about that, right? Like, even though they might have to withstand some 3/4 court pressure, I don't think they're going to be like totally upset that Colgate's going to zone them for at least some or most of this game, because that's the one thing Army really does want to do is shoot the three, and they really can't do anything else. So if Army's like allowed to get a couple threes up and they go in, well, suddenly you might have a game that's got some scoring. If those shots are not falling for Army, good night. Colgate's going to be up 15 before you can blink. And so that's kind of how I would look at this game. For my buddy Jeff, who's going, I would say Colgate minus the points. He's going to root for Colgate anyway. So, I know he wants to hear that, but also the over. I think it gets there one way or the other, because if you do get that big lead, Rob, with Colgate, and then they kind of go to sleep toward the end of the game, maybe Army gets a rush of points late just to make it a little bit closer, and you're probably going way over the total if that's the case.
Yeah, and just to put a triple exclamation point onto what you're saying about Army's penchant, or maybe just sheer necessity to have to shoot threes, they're the second most dependent team in the nation out of 365 on three-pointers where scoring is concerned. Their point distribution, three-pointers, they're the second most dependent upon that. And they're 353rd in two-point play. So it just shows you we're not going to get anything inside the arc. Everything we get is going to be outside the arc. Against Holy Cross last game, they put it up 40 times. Made 15, but they shot it 40 times. So, Colgate may be, if you throw it up 40 times and make 15, that's 45 points right there for Army. So we'll see how it goes. But it's a team that's so reliant on threes. It's crazy.
All right, let's move on. This is Jacob going from yesterday. Joey Cheese made me laugh with the Twitter capper play of the day. And Jake in the chat says that play today is going to be Alabama. He says, I lost his comment. He goes, all the fake sharps will be on Bama. Today, the Twitter capper play of the day is Alabama. Yeah, you're not wrong about that. My problem is I don't know if I disagree with them in this spot. I kind of think Bama, he's right about that. Everyone's going to love Bama. It already got hit at the open. It's already steamed. Before we came on the show, I think we were up as high as 8.5. But Rob, like, Buckyball I don't think that works against Alabama. It's worked against everyone else in the league. Somehow Texas A&M is 7-1 in SEC play. That's kind of crazy. They've been playing awesome, but can you do that against Bama? This does feel like a Bama blowout, but I also don't disagree. I think it's going to be everyone's play of the day. So talk to me, Bama, Texas A&M. How do you see this one?
Just something to consider about Bucky McMillan and Texas A&M, because I'm going through this morning. If you'd have told either of us, Adam, let's just say back in August, somebody told us, you know what, swapping Buzz Williams for Bucky McMillan is the best thing Texas A&M could possibly do. And if you said, putting Buzz Williams in Maryland is the best thing Maryland could do, and neither one is true right now. Bucky McMillan at 32 years old is absolutely tearing up the SEC. But the one thing, and this is projecting ahead, I'm going to go off topic just for half a second here. I just wonder how much of Texas A&M's success is running through the league for the first time. Like when we come to conference tournament time and people have already seen A&M and they've seen what he brought from Samford, will results be different? And I just feel like maybe his style, the uniqueness of what Texas A&M does under Bucky McMillan, once it's on tape, once you have 40 minutes of playing against it, maybe things reverse. So conference tournament time, maybe I'm going the other way. It's hard to argue against them right now. They both do the same thing, right? They both want to get into the same game. What strikes me as crazy this year, and I still can't get over the numbers inside of conference play, that Alabama is the second or the third worst team in forcing turnovers. Like Nate Oates has complained about the lackadaisical effort of this team quite a bit this year. But defensively, the good Alabama teams of the past decade, and especially those under Oates, have thrived off of, hands-on ball, steal, open floor dunk, speed up the game. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And they don't speed up the game with their defense this year. A&M does. A&M's one of the best turnover forcing teams in the league. But Alabama protects the ball well. The guards are really good. So I don't know how much that's going to come into play tonight. It just comes down to, listen, a lot of this stuff, and I said it yesterday, when we get this deep into conference play, a lot of these games are just situational. You can almost throw your statistical stuff in the garbage and just say, hey, listen, this is a spot play. It's going to work. Don't ask me why. I just know it works. And that's probably what the reference to the Twitter play of the day is here. Alabama's desperate. They need it. They're home. A&M is, coming in as the, overachieving darling this year. Wow, it's tough. Bediako brings a certain presence underneath. But A&M, Adam, they haven't shown me a spot yet where they've just walked in and been flat. Like they come to play every single game. I don't know. McMillan's getting the most out of all of these guys. All that being said, I'm not surprised if Alabama wins here tonight. I'm really not. Filion and company hit some threes, get that Coleman Coliseum rocking. We've seen it before. I'm not involved in the game because I really didn't know which way to go here. I looked at total, and if I'm right, I'm going back to just see if I can get the current total. I believe that total was bet downward. No, it's actually is sitting the same at 178.5. But for these guys to get to 180 would be no surprise. Actually, it is about a half point move down from 179 to 178.5. Probably in a good area. It's a game to watch for me, not a game to bet. I'm not going to give 8.5 points or 8 points to Texas A&M tonight. No how, no way.
I know what Joey means when he says that. Listen, if you were able to get Bama -6.5 down and in and like, that's a really good bet. We're not making fun of that bet. What he's saying is this is the one that everyone copies and pastes throughout the day, and then they're giving it out at 8.5, right, when it could have been 6.5, and we'll say, oh, this is my it's my play of the day. It's like, well, you missed that by 2 points. But that's what I think he means by that. Now, with all of that being said, you get destroyed by Florida over the weekend. Gators drop 100 on Bama over the weekend, 100 to 77. Crushed inside. Obviously, that Florida front court as good as you're going to find in the country. I do think there's some merit to this game now being in Tuscaloosa. Texas A&M's not really going to do that. They're going to let them get in transition. Bama, as we know, loves to play in transition. So I do think it's safe to say everything is sort of working in Bama's favor here in terms of like how they would want a game to be set up. They're playing at home. They're going to probably get a bunch of transition looks. It's a game that should favor them. At the same time, though, Texas A&M's playing good ball. So for me, I'm with you, Rob. I have no interest in I'm not going to be playing this game. I really don't want to give Texas A&M that kind of number. I'll tell you what, there was one offhand similar thing where everyone kind of piled onto the one side. I think it was Tennessee saying that was a terrible matchup for Texas A&M, and Texas A&M, I believe, took them into OT and lost. I think that was their only loss in conference play. They were roughly like a 9. I think it was like a 9-point favorite. It steamed all the way up to 11.5. Oh, this is a horrible matchup for A&M. They're on the road. Terrible matchup, terrible spot. A&M went into OT in that game and should have won. And that's their only conference loss to this point. So, again, I think, but this is one where I'm not going to sit here and tell you to take Texas A&M because I do see a lot of stuff that favors Alabama, but I will go with your sentiment, Rob. Texas A&M playing good ball? Like, do you really want to lay that many points? Do you want to why not pick one of the other games on the board? There's plenty of them. So interesting discussion there. All right, let's see. I'm trying to think of what I want to do here. Yeah, I'll give it out. Someone said I've been generous, Rob. Someone said I've been generous with the client plays. And the nice part about basketball season, the nice part about college basketball, as opposed to like my other main sport, which is baseball, there's just so many more plays. So it's like, it's so much easier to come on and give out a best bet, a client play, because I know I'm not really messing up the integrity of the service because, I'm going to have 4 plays on a day like this. Whereas like during baseball season, it's tough to come out and give out the client plays because I might only end up with 1 play, right, on a given day. So I'll go ahead. I haven't put this up for sale yet. It will be one of my 4%ers today. I do plan to have multiple again today because it's a great slate and there's so many different ways you can go with it. But we'll head out west. The Mountain West. I gave out a Mountain West client play best bet last night that fell short. So I'm going to try to redeem myself here, Rob. I took the New Mexico Lobos minus 130. I think it might be a little bit higher than that now. I put this in maybe like half hour, an hour before the show. They are at home tonight against Utah State. It's one of the games of the day in college basketball, so we should be talking about it anyway. That is a 4% client play for me. I love the Lobos at home here. I got to go to this building last year. I give them full marks for home court all the time. What a place that was. That is as good of a college basketball atmosphere that you're going to find. And then the final thing I'll say before I kick it over to you to sort of break down this game, Eric Olin last year beat Utah State when he was at UC San Diego. He comes over to New Mexico. He brings one of the key guys from that game with him, Dayton Albury, and now he's at home. Huge environment, huge home spot. And the final thing, I don't think they taxed this one properly. We talked about that yesterday with Boise. Like, I feel like New Mexico probably should be a bigger favorite here simply because they're at home. Like the bump that they typically would get for home court is not as big as I expected it to be here. So minus 130, I just need New Mexico to win. They haven't lost on this floor yet this year. That's a client play for me. Are you with me or against me on the Lobos?
Where the tax is concerned, it's just not as flashy this year, right? Eric Olin, it's not they're scoring points. They're just not scoring points, I guess, when you expected them in the Richard Pitino and in prior editions, you expected them to be a high-flying offense, and then they were. The tax comes on. But here under Eric Olin, they started off slow. And I got to say, I'm thinking about this game a lot this morning. I got a boatload of notes on it. But they've come along almost under the radar here, Adam, New Mexico, until now, at this point in time where they're almost hitting the rest of the Mountain West over the head with a shovel at this point in time. Quiet, and bang, the way they're playing right now. Dayton Albury. It is funny. He's the starting point guard for Utah State last year, and now he's the starting point guard for New Mexico. Simplistically, I had written down in my notes, this could be a game where one side says, stop MJ Collins, stop Utah State. The other side says, stop Jake Hall, stop New Mexico. Both shooting guards are so good for both teams. We won't go into all of their statistics that they put up this year, but I mean, MJ Collins is all everything. Jake Hall has been all everything for the other side. And for New Mexico, I mean, and I've seen them quite a bit as of late. The production there, we talked a lot about freshmen, right? But you wouldn't talk about these freshmen, Tomislav Bujan at center for New Mexico. But every time I turn him on, he's playing outstanding basketball. And right now, for what it's worth, he's top 10 in the nation in both offensive rebounding percentage and defensive rebounding percentage. Talk about a guy in the middle that just totally controls the glass. One of your best, if not the best rebounder on a personal level in the country right now. Of course, Hall's a freshman. They've got another combo guard, Uriah Tenet, who plays both positions and has played like the second most percentage of minutes on the team. He's brought all these freshmen along. They played really good defense. I'm just going to give you, because I'm big on comp games. And let's just add to this situation that Utah State is off of San Diego State, right? That's going to be your big maximum focus type game. Utah State, San Diego State. They won that game. Now they travel to a team that actually, I don't know, you could argue they're better than San Diego State, or at least just as good as San Diego State this year. But I just want to talk about the New Mexico offense for a second, because it goes unnoticed. 7-1 team total over their last 8 games. 80, 91, 87, 83, 80, 89, 90. The one game that they didn't get to 80 in the last 8 was against San Diego State, who's known to be a great defensive team. And they got to 79. They almost got 80 against San Diego State. So the offense way overlooked here. Comp game here in the pit, they destroyed Grand Canyon 87-64. They beat Fresno State. The reason why I bring up Fresno State, they're one of the top 4 defensive teams in the conference, as is Utah State. All the good defensive teams, San Diego State, Grand Canyon, Fresno State. The only one I'm not including there is Utah State, because they haven't played them yet, and New Mexico themselves. New Mexico's offense has scored big on all these teams. Utah State had real difficulty with Grand Canyon. That end of it points me towards New Mexico. And there's the other piece of me that says, you know what? Utah State's got way more options to score the basketball. But then I stopped myself, because I've had Utah State before. Adam, they don't shoot free throws very well. There's only a couple of guys on Utah State that you can put on the free throw line and think you're going to get both free throws. The rest of them, not so much. I think I would lean New Mexico here, situationally based. I think I would lean New Mexico here based on prior results against really good defenses. And I think I would lean New Mexico here simply because Eric Olin at UC San Diego last year, that team wound up being everybody's darling, right? And under the radar, he's bringing New Mexico to the same heights with better players that he did at San Diego last year. So I agree kind of with the line movement up here. Great game. But I just think, the scheduling spot here probably favors New Mexico, along with a couple other things.
Yeah, first of all, I missed Ski Profit in the chat. What's up, Ski? I got the super chat checked off. I need the Ski Profit is here box checked, because, and that's a credit to you guys. The chat is popping off today, and it's going so quickly that it's just scrolling through. I missed him here. He said he had USC the other last night. That's great. And he had Fresno State. That was just an insane last 30 seconds of that game. If you missed that, I think Fresno State was down 6 and then somehow was in position to win like at the buzzer. It was a wild finish for that game. As far as the final thing I'll say about this one, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I went to the pit last year. That place is just insane. It will be sold out. It is going to be one of their biggest games of the year. It is extremely intimidating. I was there for New Mexico, absolutely mopping the floor with Boise. New Mexico hasn't lost in this building yet this year. Interestingly, they've only covered, I think they're only like 5-6 or 6-5 against the spread at home. But that's I guess the point I wanted to make at the beginning, where it's like you usually have to lay at least a couple of possessions when you back New Mexico at home. Very rare do you get New Mexico at home where you just need to win the game. But, and rightfully so, Utah State deserves that kind of respect. They're a very good basketball team. In this case, you only need to win the game. Finally, the thing I think I like the most about this, Rob, it did take some effort to beat San Diego State over the weekend. That was a high effort, high focus type game. 71-66. It wasn't easy. It was a game that they probably had a lot of sort of attention and focus put into, especially after recent losses to Grand Canyon and to UNLV. And so I just think having to turn around and go to the pit after that is very difficult. So I took the home team minus 130. That will be my parlay leg as well. All right, Rob, I'm going to ask you if you want to do a different game, let's talk about the game you want to do. If you think you're going to use that Tulsa game, I'll go to the chat. So it's up to you. You're muted though.
I am muted. You're right.
Sorry.
I'm going to bring to the forefront a team that we haven't talked about much, but I know you refer to it as the team where you can't pronounce anybody's name. But it's a team that's been making me a lot of money quietly under the radar the last few games. That's Washington State. And I'm going to play their offense one more time. I'll just go back to the well. Those who have bought client packages have seen Washington State as a play, team total-wise. We've cashed them. It's the second time around for Washington State against Oregon State. That's where we're going tonight. This time it's in Oregon State, in Corvallis. The first time around, Washington State scored 81 against this team. Right now, they're one of the best offensive teams in this league, Adam. They've gone now. The only team that has held them below the number that they're asked to get to tonight, which is 73.5. So we need 74 to win. Their team total is 73.5 here. Gonzaga kept them below that, and Seattle kept them below that. And the Seattle matchup, it happened twice, and I think that's just a matchup thing with Seattle, right? They love to grind. They get you in those games. Washington State's been able to avoid getting into those types of games with other teams that are sort of pedestrian style, but not as, poor shooting and I would say willing to just run the shot clock down as Seattle is. Seattle's just a different breed. But here, they're shooting inside this league. Third best from 2-point, second best from 3-point, second best effective overall, fourth best offensive efficiency. They play with a little bit of tempo to their game, which Oregon State doesn't really like. And Oregon State this isn't a typical Oregon State like Wayne Tinkle type team. They don't play defense. Second worst defensive team in the league. Only Pepperdine's worse. So for me, again, I know I play a lot of bounce back, and I don't often get into a, let's just say sort of a groove where I'm playing the same thing over and over and over again because it's working. I should have done that last night with UConn. I sensed that UConn was going to have another blowout after what they did in the month of January. But here with Washington State, it's just been going so smooth with them scoring points. Just depend on them to score points. They need 74 here. Oregon State doesn't really defend anybody. We should get enough shots up at the rim. We've got three-point shooters on the floor that shoot just about 40% or better. Two that definitely shoot over 40, one that shoots near 40. And let me just give you your guy, Adam, Tomas Thrastarson. He's an Icelandic dude. But I had to go and turn him on a couple of games ago just to get the pronunciation right on his name. Ace Glass, Okafor. These guys are scorers. I'm going to go that way. Washington State team total up and over 73.5.
Yeah, I'll just going to add one thing, and then we can get one more game in here before the end of the show. But like Washington State played a tough non-conference schedule, and they've come into the league. They've come into league play, and they've already had like some of their tougher games. So I felt like they were a team that was probably due a little like offensive positive regression coming into league play just because of the the non-conference slate they played that was challenging relative to what most teams in this league. Gonzaga doesn't count. Gonzaga and St. Mary's are like not what the majority of this league is at this point. But they played a lot of challenging games. And then to come out and in that first sort of 3 weeks of conference play, have to play at St. Mary's, at San Francisco, Gonzaga, Seattle twice. Yeah, they may be getting into like the softer part of their schedule a little bit here. And some of those quote unquote softer games, 95 against Pepperdine, 104 against Portland. So they, 81 against Oregon State the first time around. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that they'd be able to have better offensive outputs against the lower half of this league. especially because they've played so many tough games to this point in the season. So I will be rooting you on tonight. What was that number again you got there, Rob?
73.5. And even to accentuate what you just said, they went to St. Mary's and scored 82. They went to San Francisco and scored 80. So it's really only been Seattle. And I guess it's a matchup thing because it happened twice. And of course, Gonzaga, who, out personals everybody in that league. So, we'll stick with Washington State here. We'll stick with if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Something we used to or generally say.
And that was you give me that number one more time. Sorry. Team total
70,
over
73.5.
73.5. Okay.
It's got a 15 cents attached to it, Adam.
Yep. I'll make sure to note that, and I'll do the math on that in a second. We still have a couple of so it looks like we're staying up late for the parlay today, both West Coast games. Let's go to, let me just make sure we didn't have any more super chat type deals here. Let's see. Don't want to miss any of those. I'm going to just pick one of these games here that's been requested at random. And Rob, I think I'll go just trying to get a different. Let's go back to the SEC. Let's go to the 9 p.m. window. My question to you is Oklahoma ever going to win a basketball game again? This team, I believe, has now lost 8 straight, and they hit the road tonight and head to Rupp Arena. And it doesn't really look good for them breaking the losing streak here. Although with that being said, I don't really care for Kentucky in this spot either. I'm kind of leaning Sooners plus the points. So do you like Oklahoma plus the points at all? And is there any way they break their losing streak on the road tonight?
I would say really quick the same thing I said about Oklahoma last week. If in fact they just haven't thrown in the towel and maybe looking for lightning in a bottle conference tournament time, then I would like Oklahoma here. What happened in Arkansas and Fayetteville the other day was kind of a surprise. Kentucky walks in. Actually, Arkansas takes the lead in the second half. And Kentucky shows a little bit of fortitude, comes back and wins that game and played up to probably what their potential is. But they're so up and down, Adam. Who wants to lay 9.5 with that team? Because they're the type of team that could come out tonight for Mark Pope and get beat outright, for all we know. One thing Oklahoma will do is score points. Kentucky's not adverse to allowing teams to score points. So I don't know. My inclination would be because they're off the Arkansas win, because they've been so middling all season long, that I would not want to lay 9.5 points. I would rather take them. All that being said, I really think that the movement on the total is correct. 151.5 up to 154.5 now. I don't even think that's enough. You probably get an over in that game.
Rob Vino, someone alert Marco D'Angelo. We have a sandwich spot alert right here. They have this team just had to play Vandy and Arkansas back-to-back. The big win over Coach Cal over the weekend in Fayetteville, 85-77. And this weekend, they've got Tennessee coming to town. Of course, that was the game. Not only has Tennessee cracked their way back into the top 25, but that was the game about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that Kentucky had a big, or they were down, I think, by 18. Came all the way back to win the game, little scuffle at the end of the game. So certainly a team that is going to have Kentucky's that game, even though Kentucky ended up coming back and winning, that game's a big deal to them, especially how the first one ended and how intense that second half was. So yeah, this one is on the short list for me. I'm strongly considering the Sooners here. I had Arkansas against Oklahoma a couple weeks ago as a best bet. I felt somewhat fortunate to cash that one. I believe I was laying 2.5 with Arkansas, and they kind of got a big bucket and a couple stops late to win that game. I think they won by 4. So man, it just feels like Oklahoma's got one in them at some point. And this one's got there's quite a lot of wiggle room here where even if Oklahoma doesn't win, pretty good chance if they play a respectable game, they cover the 9.5. So I'm going to be looking at the Sooners. I'll have to think about this one as the day goes. But that is a lot of points in this game. All right. We'll recap it real quick. Just a 2-teamer for us today. I think we'll save a 3-teamer for mid-major Thursday tomorrow. We'll get crazy and fire a 3-teamer. But for today, 2-team parlay, we've got New Mexico on the money line. Call it -130. Give or take. And then I will attach the -115 juice to our other leg. So New Mexico -130. Washington State team total over 73.5 -115. Sorry for keeping you up late tonight because both of those games are at 11 p.m. Eastern, but I'll be up, Rob will be up, and then we'll be back here 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for mid-major Thursday. More full court press. We'll see you guys then.